Welcome to Indian Podcasting Revolution, and I'm your host Rohit Kokne. In our newest series, PodPeeps, we pull back the curtains and step behind the microphone with some of the nation's most successful, innovative, and influential self-starter podcasters. From sharing their unique podcast journeys to unearthing their creative processes, PodPeeps is not just about the podcasting, it's about the people, the brave and visionary individuals who dare to use their voice and change the game. Today we have with us Dilip Kumar, a niche affiliate marketer who found his passion for podcasting through his early experiences with blogging and online businesses. From facing the challenges of hosting and distribution to learning the art of monetization and building a loyal audience, Dilip has honed his skills over the years and achieved tremendous success with his show, The Podcasting University, and by being the co-host of the Tastes of India podcast. Today, he is here to share his wisdom to make podcasting easier for you all. So, are you ready? Let's tune into the voices of change. Hi Dilip, how are you?
Hey Rohit, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great and a very warm welcome on the Indian Podcasting Revolution. It is a pleasure to host you.
Thanks a lot for having me on the show, yaar. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and to be talking about podcasting. Coming on a show and talking to a fellow podcaster about podcasting is probably the best thing that can happen on a Sunday. So, absolutely loving it.
Definitely, it's going to be a great thing. And right now, I'm feeling that I'm speaking to a chancellor of the university, the podcasting university. So we have a lot of syllabus to cover, but we'll keep it great for the listeners so that they can take a whole lot of wisdom from you and it will help them into their own podcasting journey as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the intent.
Yeah, I'm hoping that people will find value in our conversation, and even if I'm able to maybe touch one person and motivate them to start a podcast, I think the purpose is solved.
Definitely. So that's the sole purpose of the work we are doing. So Dilip, you started way back in 2015, if I'm not wrong. And that time, the Indian podcasting was not into a kind of a phase where it was more developed. And right now in 2023, a lot of things has changed. We know the platforms, we know how to do it. So what were the difficulties that you earlier faced into your journey of podcasting and what has changed till now?
Oh, good question. So, it was not even 2015. It was 2010 when I first encountered something called as podcasting. So, I'd been following a lot of bloggers because I was a lot into blogging and, building niche websites and all. So, I used to follow a lot of these digital marketing experts, a lot of these creators. And there was one of these bloggers that I was following whose name was Yaros Tarak. So, and I was an ardent follower of this blogger because there is a lot that I learned from him. And something that I saw on his blog was a small, as in an audio clip that, in fact, an audio for every one of his blogs that he would publish. And he was calling it as audio blogs. And while earlier I was preferring to read his blog posts, when I saw this audio blog coming up on his blog, I felt it was a very nice way of, consuming his content because all I just need to do was click on that play button, sit there and listen to what he had written in that blog post. I didn't have to keep my eyes glued on reading that particular blog post. So I felt pretty fascinated with that. And that is what kind of motivated me, pushed me into thinking about, because I was writing a lot of blog posts. I felt if I was getting that experience, then maybe there are a lot many other people out there who might not want to read that 5,000 words blog post. Instead, they'll prefer listening to it. So I kind of felt that that is something that will work with my audience as well. And that is what motivated me to get started. Now, I didn't know anything about the setup or how to go about starting that. So I fiddled with a lot of things. I tried recording using my computer, but I didn't know how to put that onto the website. I tried a lot of plugins. I embedded some of these audios onto my blog post, and some of them worked, some of them will not work at times. I had to spend hours trying to troubleshoot that. That's when I thought I need to learn a little bit more about and this entire audio thing. And when I read a little more about it, I came across this term called as podcasting and podcast and Apple podcast. And for me, an Apple phone and everything at those time, I don't even know as in how an iPod played because I've never used an iPod. For me, a phone itself in 2010 was like a big thing. So I didn't know what this iPod was. Why was it being called as podcasting? But I heard about podcasting. I read a lot about it. And I felt when I read about it, I knew that people were submitting these audio blogs to Apple Pod, something called as iTunes then. And there were a lot of requirements that iTunes had. And there were some backend coding that you had to do. I was running all of my blogs in WordPress. I had no clue about all of this coding and all. So I went a little more deeper and I found WordPress plugin called as PowerPress. So what this PowerPress would do is I can just host all of my audio files on a server and use PowerPress to publish that on my blog post. And in turn, what PowerPress would do is that it'll submit that audio feed, that feed to iTunes. So my podcast will appear on iTunes. So that is how there was a lot of fiddling that I did. I got one of my friend to custom create a plugin for me to embed. So there is a lot of circus that I did then just to ensure that I'm able to publish this on my blog. And then I submitted it to iTunes then. And initially, my first few episodes, absolute crickets. There was nobody who was listening to it. I didn't have any data to see how it was working. But after that, I happened to receive a couple of emails from people saying that they would love to see more of the audio blogs. And all of them were from outside of India. And that kind of motivated me. So while there was a lot of effort that I was putting in, I felt that it was paying off because there was additional traffic that I was getting. And I started to create episode after episode. So every blog post that I would publish after that, I would create an audio post and I would publish it. It was there on iTunes. So I published about 52 episodes. Now, what were the difficulties if I compare it to what it is today? And I don't think anybody in India has even heard about podcasting. Maybe only some of those bloggers who've been in the digital marketing space for quite some time would have heard about podcasting. But otherwise, from a consumption perspective, nobody in India was even consuming anything called as podcast. So then the challenges that I faced, one, from a technical perspective, like what I said, this PowerPress plugin that I spoke about was from Blueberry. Blueberry was a podcast hosting company. And Blueberry was charging, I think, around $9 or something then per month to host an audio. For me, I was not ready to spend that $9 on something that I didn't even know if it was working. And I knew that if I had never heard about it and I had never read about any Indian blogger talking about podcasting, how can somebody be consuming podcasts in India? So it didn't look like a viable solution for me. And I was not ready to spend that even that $9 then. So from a hosting perspective, everything was outside of India. No technical support, nothing. From consumer side, there was nobody who was consuming audio from India. So challenges, I wasn't able to find because my ideal audience was supposed to be from India. My ideal consumer was supposed to be from India, but I was not finding anybody for the audio blog. It was all from outside of India. And all of the technical challenges that I had to face with both of these were pretty heavy for me. And I still, managed all of that, released about 52 odd episodes. After which I felt that maybe it is not time for me to look at audio then. And maybe I should push that to the back burner and look at my core business that I was doing, which was affiliate marketing. So I kept that aside. The views still kept coming in. I was getting traffic and all from that podcast. I renamed it to Affiliate Marketing Simplified Podcast. And I have plans of reviving it, but haven't done it. But challenges like what I said, two tremendous technical challenges, which today is absolutely simple today. Anybody wants to start a podcast. It's pretty easy to start. And from an Indian market perspective, there is so much of awareness today, while we still feel that there is a lot many people who needs to be touched, but still I think the awareness has grown, especially during the COVID times. There has been huge awareness about, and there are a lot of people who consume podcasts. So awareness has grown. There is a consumer segment waiting out there for something that you want to say if what you're saying is valuable. So you have consumers, you have very good technical support. There is a lot of support that is out there. So that's the comparison between then and today.
Each and every word is relatable, Dilip, because then when I started in 2019, for me it was also the same. Like I didn't have any kind of a background into the media industry. I just ventured out, started as a kind of a casual podcaster. Let's do it. It is just the audio. That was the huge mistake I did, is what I feel. And then I realized there is more than the audio. You just have to get into it. You just have need to know, you need to get the technical know-how as well. Audio recording is just a part and parcel of it. There are the elements that you have to take care of it. And again, no one was teaching this earlier days. Right now we have a lot of resources. Still we have to see what resources are best suited for us, the kind of niche we are catering to, and how it has to be done. So you have done a lot of iterations, you have done a lot of efforts, and you know like how difficult it was and how smooth it can be done right now. So that was a great process. So you did talk about the hosting platform. Right now we have a lot many hosting platforms. Say like there is Hubhopper, there is Spotify for podcasters, Buzzsprout. So during that particular time, we all had this kind of a subscription pattern. Right now, we are free to host our podcast as well to a certain extent. So if someone has to start a podcast and if they need to choose one kind of a host platform, what care they can be taking so that their journey can be on a smooth flow?
It's another good question, and I happened to publish, as in I happened to put out a few social media posts a few days back about this. So, from the look of it, it might seem that it is not that big a consideration, because all I need to do is just sign up to a host and publish my audio there. That it's as simple as that. But it isn't as simple as that. What you need to keep in mind is that when you're picking the host, two things. One, you need support. You the support that you're getting from the host, there is a lot many things. When I talk about support, it's not just about the technical support or the customer support, but there is also promotional support that you get from podcasting hosts. Because today, if you look at podcast discovery, a lot of that has to do with the way the host is distributing that podcast to a lot of the directories. When you're picking a podcast host, when you're starting off, I'm sure nobody wants to put in money and go in with a paid podcast host, paying about 800, 900 bucks per month. So if you're looking at starting, absolutely go and start for free. You can test the waters by starting for free. But once you started and once you think that this is my thing and I'm going to continue, then I would recommend that you get into a premium platform, because there is a lot more features and support that you're going to get if you're getting into a paid option with any of these hosts. When your show progresses, so your primary consideration should be to look for such a host, and then look for reviews, read testimonials, reviews from other podcasters to see how the support is. Because I happen to face pathetic support from one top podcast host, as in a very, very good podcast host, and they are a podcast network. They have some huge podcasts out there, but the support was absolutely pathetic in the sense that I moved over to them, some of my episodes were not even playing, and it took me almost 2 weeks to get a response from them. So I stayed with them only for about a month and a half, and then I moved out, because that isn't, somebody who isn't ready to support their customers isn't something that is not a host that I would want to be with. So your consideration should ideally be, one, look for a host who can help you get started for free, which means they should give you some features which can help you get started for free, then upgrade you to a premium version with some good support. When I say support, it should be technical support, customer support, and also distribution support. A host that can distribute your podcast to the maximum directories, look for one such host.
Yeah. So have you seen any kind of limitations that comes with the host platform if a person is based out of India and if they want to cater to the geographical location of India? So can they still be starting with the Indian host platform, or like they have to just go with the kind of a regional host platforms they are catering to?
So, see, if my niche audience is based out of India, I would rather prefer an Indian podcast host. I would rather say go with an Indian podcast host, because any which ways, the marketing is to be focused primarily on India. And I think those hosts are the ones who will understand Indian market the best. Now, for most of these hosts from outside of India, like for example, Buzzsprout, Libsyn, Acast, and all of them, they are pretty new even to host Indian podcasters. So their understanding about Indian market is not as deep or as great as some of the Indian homegrown podcasters. So if your show is focused nationally or locally within India, then go with an Indian host. That is the best way to do. But if your show has a huge amount of audience coming from outside, then you can absolutely look for some of the other hosts. And from a support perspective, see, some of these big hosts, there isn't a lot that you can anyways expect from them in terms of giving you personal support. So I've been with Hubhopper, and I know that Hubhopper has given a lot of individual support to a lot of podcasters as well. So that kind of support is something that you cannot expect from an Acast who has thousands and thousands of shows where their creators are getting like millions of downloads. So they are not focused on giving that individual support or individual help to podcasters. So don't expect all of that from any of these big hosts. They are there for only the hosting and the distribution of your podcast. That's it. So if your show is catering to an Indian audience, I would recommend going with an Indian homegrown show.
Right. Because then a lot many people are settling abroad, and I often get questions from these kind of people like, what is the host platform that we should be preferring? So I always recommend what you suggested, like go for the Indian host platforms so that they can be offering a good promotional aspect as well, because that support is needed. If our show is growing, we keep up with the momentum, we get motivated, we get inspired, and try to do more, better and better. Because then initially those numbers do matter. Later on, we start figuring out on the impact that we are creating, but to keep up onto that particular journey, we need those numbers and we need those kind of a support as well. So that question came from there itself. And Dilip, I figured it out, like you had a very great valuable lessons from your first podcasting venture. Okay, then you took a brief gap or a hiatus, I would say. So if someone is wanting to start a new podcast, what kind of a pre steps that they should be taking? So the kind of a strategy or the conceptualization they should be focusing on, because then most of the people feel that it is just about getting a mic, equipments, and everything related to that, figuring out what they want to talk about. But then they forget everything, which I even did forget to start with. But right now, I understand this kind of genre. I understand how platform works and the entire industry works. So, what would be your suggestions around that?
So, see, I'll answer that in two parts. One is that specifically from India, because I'm a consumer of podcasts and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've been following a lot of these international podcasts. So, when podcasts came to India, I see two kind of people who started podcasting. One was that hobby podcaster who only wanted to put his voice out there. And those kind of podcasters were somebody who had maybe five poems that they had written, or maybe two, three songs that they had written. They just wanted to record it and put it out there for any audience. There isn't something I'm expecting from that. Maybe get a few audience, somebody to listen to my shairi or my poems. So that is one segment of podcasters. And there are a lot such podcasters who are getting started. So for them, there isn't much. So what is your expectation? Your expectation is for a few years to listen to your poem. So you just record it, put it out there. But if you're looking at that activity and saying that I want to monetize this, make it a big podcast, then that isn't something that is going to work, because that is not what podcasting is all about. The second one is the serious podcasters who are looking at it as from a long term for two things. One is probably to help an audience out there, and also to satisfy that feeling of mine saying that okay, I am doing something for the society. In return, what is it that I'm expecting? Maybe I'm only expecting support from people who are listening to it. Monetization, it if it comes, it is fine. Even if it isn't, then it's fine. There are a lot of YouTubers who do that. They haven't even enabled monetization on their channel in spite of them having huge views. So that is one segment of the podcasters. The second one, the serious podcasters, are the ones who are looking at monetizing their podcast and making it a source of income for them. Now, what I will be talking about is relevant to these two podcasters. The first, hobby podcasters, it doesn't matter. Now, when it comes to these two podcasters, and something that I truly believe in is that if you are not a consumer of something, you can never be a creator. If I need to create a product to solve a problem in the society, I need to know what that problem is. And if I need to know what that problem is, I need to be a consumer in that society. When I'm consuming something, I know that, okay, this product that I'm consuming, this is something that is lacking in this product. Now, this is a problem that I need to solve. So I will go and create a product which solves this problem. So until and unless I am not a consumer, I'll never be able to create, even in podcasting. If you want to start and build a successful podcast, you need to be a podcast consumer. You need to listen to podcasts. Now, when you're listening to podcasts, you might have an idea. For example, let me say somebody who's good at psychology for kids, as in how parenting, how to treat kids or how to treat teens. You can only know and create content when you know what is the gap in the content that is already available in the market. Because something that is already available in the market, something that people are consuming, you go and create the same content again, then it is very difficult for you to catch up with that competition that is already there for ages and then succeed with it. But if you're able to identify that gap that this particular podcast is not able to solve and create a podcast around that, it is easier for you to compete with them. Consume content in whatever space you're wanting to get started with, whatever it is. Look at what is out there, what content is out there, identify the gaps, and plan on how your podcast is going to solve that gap. Then put together a complete plan in terms of what your content is going to be, who your ideal audience is, and everything, and then get started. So important that you know what your topic is going to be, what your niche market is going to be, but you also, and there is huge competition in everything today. All said and done, you open in any niche, you open Instagram, you will find thousands of creators with everybody with millions of followers. In that competition, if you want to stay there and succeed, then you need to know what is that gap that you're going to solve and if there is a demand for that gap. So identify that, then follow the other process of putting together content plan and do that. So go and identify that gap that your idea is going to solve, and then do it. Just don't blindly get started with it. That is what my suggestion to people is, and you can do that by easily consuming. If you're able to consume content, you will know what is there, what is missing in a lot of the other podcasts out there, and you can do it.
Right. Because then people are so enthusiastic, like they just want to roll out their first episode. They just want to get their name into that particular directory. But all of this is very much necessary. The more research we do, the better clarity we get, and so that we'll be able to fill those gap particularly. And you did talk about the aspect of monetization. It is a common goal for most of the podcasters, is what I feel. And it comes on a later stage. But then drawing from your experience of affiliate marketing, how was your experience into monetizing your show, and what are the different tactics and the means and modes that you feel that monetization can be done for the podcast?
That's a question that I really like talking about. That's something that I really like talking about. So I'll quote the example of one of the podcasts that me and my wife run. So we run a podcast called as the Tastes of India podcast, which is basically about, we talk a lot about Indian culture and food. So it's a recipe podcast where there is a segment where we talk about motivational stories, Indian culture, and then a segment where we talk about a particular recipe. So when we started off this podcast, our objective was not to get an audience or millions of downloads for that particular podcast. My target was to drive every listener listening to that podcast to my blog, because my wife was running a blog called as a tastesofindia.com. Now, whenever we were doing that, we were using a unique URL for people to browse over, click over to our blog, and we found that a lot of footfall was coming from our podcast episodes. And when this footfall was coming from our podcast episodes, we wanted to then monetize it. And one of the ways we thought we'll be able to monetize it is through the usual ads that were running on the blog. In addition to that, what we also felt was maybe we can try using some affiliate marketing in there. And what we did is, when we were driving these visits to our that particular blog post, in every one of those blog posts, we were embedding a lot of these Amazon affiliate links. And with those traffic that was coming in, we also found that there was an uptick in the affiliate commissions that we were earning from Amazon affiliate, which meant that it was converting, which meant that traffic was converting. Affiliate marketing today, and while we emulate a lot of things from a lot of these successful podcasters, What I haven't seen a lot of people doing is looking at some of their monetization techniques. So some of the top podcasters, you talk about John Lee Dumas, you talk about Pat Flynn. Pat Flynn used to publish income reports until I think about 4 or 5 years back. And one considerable part in the income report that he was publishing was the income from affiliate marketing. John Lee Dumas, now his affiliate commissions have gone down because a lot of the other income, there is a lot of income coming from some of the other mediums. But he's also doing a lot of these affiliate marketing. And you look at pick every successful affiliate marketer, every successful podcaster, you will find that they have a lot of income being generated from affiliate marketers. But I feel that we aren't looking at that as an income source, especially in India. What I would recommend is, see, it's we keep going after sponsors. We want big sponsors to come and sponsor my show. But for that to happen, you need to have a lot of downloads. But imagine, even if you are getting 1,000 downloads, it's, let me say, 1,000 listens, it's 1,000 listeners who have listened to your podcast. You haven't done anything with those 1,000 listeners. Instead of going after that sponsorship, what I would recommend is, if that sponsor has an affiliate program, why not join that affiliate program, promote his product on your show? Use a way of directing that traffic to maybe a website or a landing page, or whichever way you can divert that traffic to a place from where people can buy that product. All that you're doing is just recommending a product on your show. If people click on that link and buy, you get a commission, you get paid something. So compare it with something, a situation where you're not earning anything, and here you are earning something. Why shouldn't you be doing that? And there is a little bit of extra effort that you might need to put in. So what I feel is that, while we are looking at that, all of the sponsorship and everything, what we slightly need to change our perspective and look at is how you can use affiliate marketing in your podcasting journey so that you can earn money. And what I would recommend is, one, Amazon affiliate. And it's an underrated way of making money in India, because I don't think a lot of people are even looking at it, because Amazon pays only 4% 5% commission. But that 4% 5% can be considerable looking at the shopping habits in India. Amazon is huge. People buy every small thing, a pen also, from Amazon. And if they click on your link once, go to Amazon, and if they buy 10 other products, you are going to get commission for all of those 10 products. So why not do that? Join Amazon Associate Program, the easiest program to join. Amazon Associate Program. Start promoting their products on every one of the show notes that you're publishing for your episode. First and the best way of earning affiliate commission. Second, if you have some prospective sponsors that you're looking at, see if they have affiliate programs. Sign up for that affiliate program, pick a few products, promote on your podcast. Second best way of earning money. Third, and you might have seen a lot of YouTubers doing it. Their channel might be about, maybe about, motivation or leadership skills. But in their video description, they will put links to the camera that they are using, the microphone they are using, the headphone they are using. You click on it, go and buy, they get a commission for it. Why don't you do that? You are a podcaster. You are using a microphone. Somebody out there who's listening to your podcast, even if your podcast is about parenting, might have an idea of starting a podcast saying, "Oh, I have this idea about parenting, this unique perspective. I would like to start a podcast." He might want a microphone. If you're recommending, suggesting the microphone that you're using, they might just buy it from your link. You will get a commission. So, recommend products that you're using in your day to day life, in your show notes, in your podcast description, in your blog posts, the best way of making money out of your podcast. Three things I absolutely recommend: Amazon affiliate commission. If your sponsors have affiliate programs, join them and promote their products, or else look for similar companies and join their affiliate programs. And there are a lot of affiliate networks in India today. You can sign up for the affiliate networks, and you won't even believe that they have, for simple Hindustan Lever products, they have affiliate programs running for Hindustan Lever products. sign up with those affiliate networks, you can promote them. And the third one is like what I said, anything that you're using and you think you can recommend to your audience or you have a good review about, recommend it to your audience. Let them go and buy it from your link. You will earn a commission and they don't have to pay anything extra for it. Why would they have a problem buying it from your link?
A great advice. I should be joining your classes, is what I feel. And it works. I have tried with my YouTube channel when I started it in 2018. It was just a kind of a stunt. I just discarded it. But then I used to attach those links and I used to get paid for it. But right now I'm having my own website as well. So I can readily do that. And this is something that people can always try it, because then we always try to find the harder mediums. But the modes you suggested, they are quite easy, they are quite achievable, is what I feel, and that will make the journey more memorable, is what I feel, because then it acts like a kind support for them. They're not expecting a lot from it. And Dilip, I have seen that you have built your email list as well, and it has grown into numerous numbers. I don't have the exact number, but I'm sure that you are utilizing it to the best of your benefit. So in what way it has benefited you into your podcasting journey and the growth you have got for your own show?
That's a very interesting topic to talk about. So, email list, I learned it the hard way because, like what I said, when I started off, I was building a lot of niche websites. So there was one point where I had about 80 websites, which were all niche affiliate websites, which was on a particular, as in catering to a particular niche. And every one of them was only using affiliate programs to make money. And I was making money from that. And the content there was pretty lean. And it was those days when Google wasn't that serious about, search engine algorithms and all of that. And I never focused on building a list or anything. I was getting a lot of traffic to all of those websites. All I was doing is just directly redirecting those people coming onto my website to the merchant's website, and they were going there, clicking on that link, buying. I was getting a commission. I was happy. I never focused on list building. And I used to read a lot. And every successful blogger out there would say that the money is in the list. But I felt, okay, money is coming. Why would I build a list? So I didn't do that. And at one point, when Google implemented their algorithm, my websites went to zero. It crashed. And there was a point where I was struggling to figure out what had happened and why is it that those commissions had stopped coming. Which is when I started to realize, okay, maybe list building is important. And that's where I started it. So to anyone who thinks, who's generating a lot of listens and downloads to their podcast, one simple advice that I give is every one of those listener coming and clicking that play button and listening to your podcast is generating revenue for the podcast host. It is not doing anything for you. He listens to that podcast and browses away. You don't even know who that individual was who came and listened to your podcast. But if you want to know who that individual was, if you want to make use of that one listen that you got, you absolutely need to be building your list. What I do is the list that I have built, that list gets me a lot of repeat listeners. So when I publish an episode, I send out a list, an email to my list talking about that particular episode. And even if I, for example, I have a list of about, let me say, 8,000, or let me, for number say, let me say 10,000. 10,000 subscribers, if out of that I am able to get maybe 50% people to open my email, which is 5,000 people opening the email, and let me say about 25% clicking on my link and listening to the episode, which is about 2,500 people listening to my podcast episode through the email that I sent, and 25% click through rate. If your list is good, responsive, you can easily get it. 2,500 people listening to your episode from that one email that you sent. One benefit is to get repeat listeners for your show. Second, you can get a lot of feedback from the audience, which will help you create a lot of episodes. Now, in the last, I think, 20 odd episodes that I created, there were 4 episodes that I created only because of emails that I got from my subscribers. And one of that was the episode that I created, is in the 2 episodes back, the one that I created primarily talking about affiliate marketing, because one of those email subscriber wrote to me saying that you talk a lot about affiliate marketing, but you've not created a single episode about affiliate marketing. And it was true. I've never touched about affiliate marketing. So I created an episode for affiliate marketing. You can get a lot of feedback from them, which in turn helps you create more content, understand what they are looking for. Third biggest thing is in terms of monetization. I promote a lot of products using my email list. Now, for example, let me talk about the Tastes of India's email list, which is the biggest list that we have because we've been building it for quite some time now. We almost have about 220 odd episodes. So there, what we do is we've created an influencer page on Amazon. Now, we every email we direct users to that influencer page. Now, that influencer page has different products that we are recommending from different segments. It can be kitchen essentials, podcasting requirements, camera equipments, books that I read, all of them. Now, by directing users to those links, I'm able to generate commission from my Amazon associate account. In addition to that, I also periodically promote some of the other products. Like, for example, food blogging is something that we promote on the food blog. So I also promote some of these food blogging courses. Now, there are also conversions that happen. So these are all monetization ways of monetizing my listeners. And if I wasn't doing that, imagine I would still be waiting for some sponsor to come and sponsor my show. So there is nothing that I was getting for the efforts that I've been putting. I'm able to do that. And if I'm able to engage with that email subscribers, you will get excellent open rates and click through rates and repeat listeners for your podcast. This is how I use my list, and I would recommend anybody who is starting off with their podcast. First thing that you need to do is set up a website, put together an opt-in form, start building your email list from the first day itself.
I'm doing that. And I feel that there is a direct correlation between the traffic to your website as you stay into the Bangalore itself. You get a lot of traffic. I'm just hooked onto that particular word. How you are getting that particular traffic? I want to know that. Great. Loving this conversation, Dilip. You have got great insights, is what I feel. And I should respect that because everyone out here is looking for such kind of insights, the learning experiences, and it makes their journey easier, is what I feel.
Oh, that's what I was saying. So, even if I'm able to kind of get one person to start off the right way, I think the objective is met. So,
Yes. So, Dilip, you did talk about the show that you two are co hosting, The Tastes of India, and it has got a great success. So, here, what I could relate is the power of collaboration because then you have got unique perspectives. You might be having your own insights, she might be having her own perspective to what topic that you have chosen. With respect to podcasting, also, we always tend to have different kind of formats. It could be monologue, it could be co hosted, it could be a just friendly conversation. So, if someone is starting out solo, how they can just redefine their own strategy with respect to the kind of episodes they would be publishing, or how they can take benefit of collaboration.
So see, monologues, if you like talking, monologues is something that you can absolutely start with. But over a period of time, what happens is you tend to get a feeling that you are the only one who's talking and you're talking to yourself. So you tend to get a little bored with all of that conversation. So from a collaboration perspective, what I would recommend is one, try to get into a community. So try to be a part of community because that helps a lot. That not only helps with ensuring that you are motivated, you are consistent, accountability and all of those things, but it also helps get unique perspective from people. You can reach out to people, ask for their suggestions, feedback. So then that's a pretty important aspect of growing. So if you are able to join communities, it's one good thing that you'll be doing, especially if you're somebody who runs the show that is a monologue. Second, what you could do, and this is something that I haven't done, but I'm in conversation with somebody, and you should be able to see that episode coming out maybe in about 3 or 4 weeks from now. We're putting together a structure to it, but haven't confirmed. So I'll just tell you what is it that I'm planning to do. It could work if you want to try. You can always go and try. What I think is that there could be other such people in the same niche who might have a slightly different kind of a podcast running, who are also running monologues. What I feel is a good way of doing is that the two of you can collaborate on a podcast where you're talking. It can be a conversational podcast where the two of you are talking about something that is relevant to that particular market or niche at that point. Now, for example, if I am talking about podcasting, probably what I could talk about right now is how can indie podcasters survive in an ocean where there is so many branded podcasts or huge podcasts who are starting original shows and making a lot of getting a lot of sponsors and money. So the two of us can probably talk about some perspectives and tips on how indie podcasters can survive the market. Now, what I'm essentially doing is, it is not an interview, it is a conversation where we are sharing ideas to people. Now, the two of you can publish that podcast on both your podcasts. So there is an audience that will come to your show from that podcaster, and there is an audience that will go to their show from your podcast. So you are not cannibalizing on each other. Instead, you are supporting each other. So that's one format that I'm looking at. I'm currently working on there, and I think it'll need some work, but if you are able to put the right framework to it, I think that is something that can work. So I would say that you should collaborate with other podcasters, especially if you're running a monologue, because if you're doing an interview, you are anyways bringing in guests to your show, and there is a lot of variety that you already have. But you need to give that variation to your listeners, and this is something that you can always try. One, and second, collaboration. You should be part of communities where there can be a lot of idea sharing, support, and all of that. I'm I'm hoping that that's what you wanted to know or wanted to understand, and I answered.
Yeah, definitely. And you did talk about the community. We also are having this podcast pioneers community for exclusively for the podcasters where we learn, grow, and share our learnings. So that is something that we'll be doing more of it, because then we again want to have people to learn from each other. That is the whole intent. The more people we get into it, the more they feel acknowledged for the work they are doing, because then they don't like, it is hard to find the podcasters who are doing great job, and through this kind of community structure we'll be able to bridge that particular gap, is what I feel. And talking about your way of learning, your way of keeping yourself updated about podcasting as an industry, how do you do that? And again, you're managing a lot of things, the online business and all. So what is the kind of a workflow structure that you have for yourself? Because then giving it a full attention, and again, not dividing the attention, is something that we all have to focus on. So what's your structure for it?
I have always been anything in terms of knowledge, I absolutely consume it. It is video, podcasts, blogs, books. So I read a lot of books, and I have a dedicated time for doing it. And I prefer doing it in the mornings because that's when I feel that I'm able to kind of retain the most when I do that in the morning. So I usually have that slot where I either read a book, or there are some particular blogs that I've been following for years, like Copy Blogger, and also I've been following them for years now, and I ensure that I read every one of their blog posts that they come out. So my way of gathering information, it is basically, one is from blogs, second is from newsletters that I've signed up for. There are a set of creators whose newsletters I have signed up for, and I've created a specific email address where I only get those newsletters, so that it doesn't disturb my inbox, and I have a dedicated reading space. Third one is through books. And I watch a lot of informative videos from a lot of these creators. Now, there are a lot of people that I follow, as in top creators. I've been following Ali Abdal for quite some time now, and I'm absolutely fascinated with the kind of content he creates, the information he shares. So, these are some creators that I've been following for quite some time. So, I watch some of those videos, but I have a dedicated time that I have assigned to myself, which primarily is for consumption. And when I say consumption, it can be anything, but usually I don't consume podcasts during those hours. Podcast is something that I usually consume in the afternoon when I have some time. That's when I usually listen to podcasts, and I have a subscription which to some of these podcasts, which are regular podcasts that I listen to whenever I go out driving. So podcast, that's how I consume. But reading, I have a dedicated time, especially in the morning. I don't look at news. News only comes to me in the form of shorts. I just need to know what is happening in the world. That is it. But otherwise, I read a lot of this. Specifically in the morning, I usually keep aside about an hour and a half for reading. It can be books, it can be blogs. That's how I consume a lot of this knowledge. And then social media, anyways, if you are on LinkedIn, Twitter, and if you're following the right people, and if you're able to spend even half an hour there, I learned it from, I think it was Sahil Bloom's training. I think he had given a simple mechanism to set up tweet deck in such a way that you're able to get what is relevant content from Twitter. So I've set it up that way, and I go through, browse through, spend about half an hour on Twitter to look at some of these information. If there is something that I like, I copy that information onto my Notion notebook so that I can keep it, refer back to it. I can use that to trigger something that I'm creating, maybe write my newsletter or some of those things. So I have a dedicated time for consuming content.
In a very structured way is what I feel.
Yeah. And if what I've seen is I wasn't this structured some time back. I like what I said, I've been following Ali Abdal, and I learned a lot from him in terms of structuring things and kind of putting a system in place and all. If you don't have that, it is all over the place. It took me, I think, about a month and a half to organize all of the notes that I had put together earlier, because it was everywhere. It was there on OneNote, it was there on Evernote. I don't know where and all it was. It took me some time to organize all of that. So you have to be organized if you want to consume content.
All right. And Dilip, this show is all about giving. So you did talk about the newsletters and the blogs you read. So if you have to recommend any one kind of a newsletters and the blog that would help the podcasters, would you love to recommend that as well?
So see, not specifically podcasters, but I would say that in general, content creation is something that it is pretty much similar with all mediums. So I can recommend a few newsletters. What I would say is you should subscribe to Justin Welsh's newsletter, which is it's called as a Saturday Solopreneur. It's an amazing newsletter, one newsletter that you get in a week. There is a lot of value in it. So you need to be subscribed to that. That is one. I would recommend subscribing to Sahil Bloom's newsletter, which is another very informative newsletter that you get. And if you know James Clear and have read Atomic Habits, then you can subscribe to his 3 to 1 newsletter, which is another very concise information that I get. So I would recommend these three newsletters, which is, Justin Welch's newsletter is probably something that will give you a lot of valuable information about content creation. Then similarly, like what I said, Sile Bloom and 3 to 1 is something that I would recommend from a newsletter perspective. Blogs, copy blogger, if you're somebody who wants to learn copywriting, you can follow copy blogger. Then you can also, there is Copy Hackers is something that I would also recommend, which is something that you can follow, which is an amazing blog, a lot of informative content out there. So anything around content creation, all of these top bloggers, there is a lot of information that you will be able to find.
Great. Thank you so much for recommending those. And as we are coming to the end of this particular episode, if you have to give any kind of tips for the self-starter podcasters who are just starting out or who have started and want to grow as a podcasters, what they would be?
So the first and foremost thing is that if you're looking at it as a sprint, if you think that your podcast is going to make you a celebrity in 12 months, it is not going to happen. So if you look at all of those podcasters out there, they've slogged for years together to reach wherever they are. Now, we spend almost 12 years studying in school, then another 4 years or 3 years for graduation, then another maybe 2 years for getting some additional degree, then go to a job and start off with some meager salary. And we are okay with all of that. But we are not ready to put in that 12 months when it comes to anything like, a blogging or a podcasting or anything. So understand that this is another learning process. So look at it from that perspective. Put in that initial 12, 24 months because I've spoken about Ali Abdal. Now, Ali Abdal has created content for 7 years. And it's the last 2 years where he's like become the next big thing. If you look at Ankur, anyways, he was an entrepreneur and all of that. But if you look at his YouTube channel, he spent almost 7, 8 years putting out a video every day, every week, but then his YouTube channel saw success only in the last 2 years. So look at it as a long term investment that you are doing for yourself. So plan it. And I put out a post on LinkedIn today. So, in one sentence, what I will say that if you don't envision yourself as releasing an episode in August 2024, then you shouldn't start a podcast right now. If you think that you're going to publish a podcast in August of 2024, and if you believe in yourself and say, okay, in August 2024, I'll still be releasing episode, then absolutely start a podcast. So look at it from that perspective. Take time to learn and continue creating. Do the right things, continue creating, be in there, you'll be able to succeed. The single tip that I have, and then the rest of the things, there are a lot of information that is there out on the internet. So do your due diligence, check if what you're getting into is something that you would love doing, is something that you want to keep doing, something where people are looking for information. So if you're able to do those things, I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Great. And thanks for being blunt about that, because not many people would say into that fashion, but that was needed.
I am a firm believer, and I always keep saying that, if you read most of these blog posts, people say podcasting is easy. Just pick up a microphone and start. That is probably the biggest lie, because what they are wanting to say is getting started or starting a podcast or recording your first audio is easy. But podcasting is not easy, because podcasting means staying in there for maybe the next 2 years, doing that thing week in, week out, spending hours to edit your audio, record your audio, work on your content plan, all of that. It is not easy. So, podcasting is not easy. Getting started might be easy, but continuing with podcasting is difficult, and you need to be in that mindset. Understand that you're getting into something that is difficult, is going to be extremely taxing on you, is going to be, a huge stress at times. So, get into it with that mindset. Once you are in with that mindset, then there is no problem. You'll just keep continuing releasing your episodes.
That was so relatable. And I feel that everyone should always have this kind of feeling that they are doing something different. And podcasting is such a medium that it is very different. It is unusual. Like, you are not available on social media, still people will be able to listen to you. People will be able to get to you through various mediums. And that is something podcasting offers you. And you're able to express yourself without any filters. So that usually happens with the a voice. You are able to copy the words, but you can't copy someone else's voice, your emotions, and something like that. So there is a lot to learn into this particular medium. And I hope that everyone listening to this kind of episode will get a lot to learn, will get a lot to experiment onto their own show, and devise a kind of a mechanism for success or for the growth of the podcast. And I again, like, we are asking for the investment of the people's time, we are not wasting their time, and that is the whole concept, that is the whole intent. So anyone who would be listening to you and your insights and your wisdom that you have gained through podcasting will definitely able to relate to a lot extent, is what I feel. So thank you again so much for giving me this kind of opportunity to host you. And I feel that everyone listening to the Indian podcasting revolution will be able to contribute to the Indian podcasting industries as well. We hope you have liked the podcast episode we have had today on PodPeeps. By the way, if you want to join Podcasters community, fill the form from link in the show notes. And yes, thank you so much for being here today. Do send us a DM on Instagram at DFY Podcast if you follow Indian Podcasting Revolution. And if you are yet to follow, what are you waiting for? Follow it now and join us next week for yet another episode. This is your host Rohit, signing off.